Even though Farkle is a relatively modern dice game, it's still a welcome addition to Kingdom Come Deliverance, whether it's our way of unwinding within its world, or we use it as a means of making legit coin. There's no denying that it's an entertaining side activity. One aspect which I always wondered about are the details surrounding this minigame's various loaded dice. While most of us can get a sense for how they perform just by using them repeatedly, I wanted to put those specifics in writing, so I spent a significant amount of time testing all types of dice in KCD, and in this video I will share with you what I found out, in our attempt to demystify their varying tendencies. When we're dealing with something randomized like dice rolls, it's not enough that we take a large sample size and tabulate the results. For the tests I conducted, each type of dice was thrown 100 times, and this process is also repeated twice to give us 3 sets. This should be large enough for us to see any potential pattern that might form, or the lack of it. To maintain transparency, each throw is tallied accordingly, including those that resulted in busts. For instances where a certain set only needed data points fewer than the dice at play, the entire throw is disregarded until their number matches what's required. Since we're taking notes of how dice perform through Henry, it doesn't matter who the opponent is, but for the sake of consistency, I chose this townsman who plays daily at the Broken Wheel Tavern. Starting off with the ordinary dice, we can see that the most dominant side changes per group. In set A, it's side 4, while on B, they're split between sides 2 and 5. This is further contrasted in set C, where the data favored side 3. The same scattered result is also observable on the subdominant sides that tended to move around. If we take a look at the average from all 3 sets, the chances of it to land on any of the 6 sides are within 4% of each other. This factor combined with the previous one are indications that the ordinary dice is a well-balanced baseline as expected. The bigger the disparity between an average, and when one tends to repeatedly favor certain sides per group, the more loaded a dice is. Take for example the biased dice. In all 3 blocks, the dominant number is consistently on 2, followed by 1. There's also a substantial gap from all the other sides as well, reflected on their average. But the most outrageous example of loaded bones came from the Holy Trinity dice that landed on a 3 most of the time. On average, it has a 45% chance to roll on it, and is the highest observed probability among all types. In fact, this one even outperformed Henry's beta dice. Even though its pattern looks the same, it only has a 40% chance to roll a 2 when put together. So if the ordinary dice is our reference for what is considered balanced, then we can use the Holy Trinity dice to represent the other extreme. One peculiar bone owned by Wolfram Pruda is called Commonest Dice. Its behavior across all 3 sets are seemingly random, and the same thing can be said about its averages, that are very close to each other, just like our baseline. So I'm quite perplexed as to why this exists, other than maybe as a joke by the developers. It's not like the Devil's Head dice, which has a special amplifier effect on side 1, even though its performance is very similar to an ordinary dice. We can see here that the leading sides tend to move around, and their average is within 7% of each other. If you'd like to include a dice with a similar effect on your set, I highly recommend using Alphonse's Devil dice instead, which has an 18% chance to land on a 1 instead of the former's 13%. There's a slightly higher chance that you might roll 6s as shown on sets A and C, but set B's result also looks very promising. If you're not sure how this unique side works, it basically acts as an additive to the resulting numbers. Let's say for example you decided to play Farkle using it, along with Dice of Misfortune, which likes to favor sides 2, 3, 4, and 5. very similar to the unpopular dice that shares the same tendency. And we have 5 bones remaining, including Alphonse's devil dice that landed on a 1. Its value will adapt depending on the others. So if the throw resulted in 2 2s, a 4, and a 6, the ADD will become a 2 upon selecting it, along with the 2 2s to complete the trio. If, however, the throw gave us a 1, 2, 3, and a 4, then it will turn into a 5 upon selecting all of them to complete the straight. Even though the unique effect on side 1 is powerful, its usefulness is solely dependent on the value of other dice at play, because it has no number of its own. So if there are 3 dice remaining and we rolled a 2 and a 3 along with it, then it's a bust. Some of the types' behaviors are quite predictable, such as the Lu, Si, and Fur dice that greatly favor side 6. There are also odd and even dice, which lean in favor towards the values indicative to their names. If we examine their averages, we can see that the 3 leading sides are within 5% of each other, so I won't be surprised if their internal setting is at 25% each. I also noticed early on that there seems to be several other kinds which, for whatever reason, has a tendency to greatly favor sides 1 and 6, the best example being the Heavenly Kingdom dice that are consistent across all 3 sets. The same pattern can be observed from shrinking playing dice, except the dominant and subdominant sides are swapped. We also have Matthias's lucky dice, where, based on the average, sides 1 and 6 can interchange. This one, along with Ambrose's dice, are part of a Woman's Lot DLC questline, and they're almost identical, except the latter also has a significant chance to land on 2s. If you've been playing Farkle for a while, you'll know that a simple strategy in winning it is to keep rolling 1s and 5s. But if all we cared about is to find out which ones have the best chance in landing 1s specifically, then Alphonse's dice is one of the 2 best options available, which has a whopping 36% chance. This is why in the DLC quest, where we try to win back Hans Capon's heirloom necklace in a dice tournament, it's imperative that we pilfer it from La Dota before playing to make it a lot easier for ourselves. In general, however, it's not a good idea to rely on a single side in any of the game's various playing dice. Even something heavily loaded, such as this set, is not always guaranteed to land where they should, so subdividing the task between sides 1 and 5 is a better strategy. Before I tested the lucky dice, I expected that it would perform well enough to be considered second best, but according to the results, it's behaving more similarly to those led by 1s and 6s we talked about earlier. As we can see from their average, sides 1 and 6 are both in the higher 20s, while side 5 is just 17%. This makes the strip dice a better option, where 2 out of 3 sets are in line with what we're looking for. The average result also shows that the relevant sides are distributed equally. This might be a reason why its owner, the bathhouse maid Zidina, is notoriously difficult to beat at Farkle in one side quest. It's just a shame that there's only one of them in the entire game as far as I know. Undoubtedly, the best ones for winning are the lucky playing dice. Not only do sides 1 and 5 hover around 30%, they're also the only ones in which a single value is seemingly nullified. Out of 300 throws, it never landed on a 2 even once, and the only thing that's keeping it in check most of the time is side 6. But even with that in place, we're still looking at a combined 66% chance to land on a 1 or a 5, which makes this set really overpowered. And that's not all there is to it. Remember that there's also a perk called Perfect Throw, and initially I thought activating it would simply increase our chances of landing 1s and 5s. But the test result using ordinary dice shows that its performance is virtually identical to our reference, both in the sets and average. However, I noticed that I seem to have landed more combos when it's activated, basically the same value on 3 dice or more, so I tested this out as well. Without the perk, I landed triplets or more on initial throws 13 times out of 50. But with perfect throw activated, this tendency climbed to 32. I think what's going on in the background is that the dice are influenced by values that appear twice or more. So if, for example, a throw is about to result with 2 4s included, the other ones are given a higher chance of landing on a 4 as well. That's my hypothesis anyway. At the very least, we're guaranteed that perfect throw will increase our chances of getting triplets or higher by more than double. Those were my observations surrounding all available dice in KCD. If you'd like to take a look at the results in detail, I made a PDF copy available for download. Link in the description.